trustees place 3 on the stage. What we ask is that you go ahead and introduce yourself before you give your 1-minute opening statement, and we're going to follow in ballot order. Continue down the line. It's a very short line. And Stuart, we'll start with you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for hosting us, Chamber, tonight. My name is Stuart Shulman, and I'm the challenger for Place 3 on the Frisco ISD School Board. I've spent the last 20 years as an education professional, working both in the public schools, at the university level as a professor teaching education majors, and also as a small business owner, working with teachers and students all across the nation. I currently serve as a PTA board member at the elementary school level, where my son is a first grader and my daughter is going to be starting kindergarten next year. So I have firsthand experience with all aspects and all levels of Frisco ISD. You can see all my goals and my visions on my website, Stuart, for FISD.com. The only one I want to really emphasize tonight is that I'm here to represent you. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, or where you come from. I'm here to represent everyone. I'm not coming in with an agenda or an ideology. I'm just here because I have an ethic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie, you have 1 minute.
Good evening. I'd like to start tonight by asking everyone in the audience to please, when you go home tonight, please pray for Frisco ISD. We've been through a lot in the past couple of weeks, you may have heard, and our community is suffering right now, and if you could all just take a moment when you get home to pray for not only the city of Frisco, but Frisco ISD, I'd appreciate it. My name is Stephanie Alad. I am running for Frisco ISD Board of Trustees, Place 3. I am running for re-election. 3 years ago, I stood before you and asked for your support in the election, and the community kindly elected me to this role. I believe that I have proven to be who I said I was, and I've proven to do what I said I would do. It was a very different Frisco ISD 3 years ago. We have new challenges ahead of us tonight. We have enrollment challenges, budget challenges that did not exist in the same way 3 years ago, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about that this evening, but we are definitely at a crossroads. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephanie, we will start with you with our first question. So far tonight we've talked about declining enrollment projections for Frisco ISD. We've talked about the launch of the Access Frisco program to open enrollment to out-of-district students. What specific actions would you ask the state legislature to help Frisco ISD address its deficit and provide adequate funding for public schools?
You're asking about legislation?
Yes.
So what I would ask the legislature to do is what I have asked our legislators who are part of Frisco ISD to do, which is 2 things. Address the daily allotment, the per student allotment that hasn't been adjusted in 5-6 years now. We can't continue to have inflation outpace us, and so we need to address that, number one. And we need to also make sure that it adjusts for future inflation, so we don't have to keep going back to the legislature every couple of years for an increase. The other thing that I think is very important that isn't talked about too often is unfunded mandates, and I've talked about this with our legislators as well. The legislature passes a bill, expects the school districts to implement it, and they don't provide the funding to do that. And there's been bills around school safety, there's been bills around STAR testing, and so the district has to find the funds from other places to do that. And when I talk to our legislators, I ask them to please address those 2 things. That would make a huge difference in our budget.
So the first thing I would ask them to do is there's $28 billion in the rainy day fund that's just sitting there, being held hostage. They need to release at least half of that and dip $14 billion back into the public schools for the 5.5 million kids that are in public schools. I'd also ask them to stop considering HB3. We don't need vouchers for private schools. It's just ridiculous. We need to fund our schools based on enrollment, not on average attendance. We have a very high attendance rate at 95.5%, but we lose out on $17 million a year that we have to plan for, but the state never sends us because of the enrollment. I also agree that we need an inflation adjustment every year based on what's happening in the economy, and the unfunded mandates are really breaking us. Just in transportation, safety and security, and special education, we have a $65 million unfunded and underfunded mandate right there, and it's just taking away from everything else.
Stuart, we'll start this question with you. Again, considering House Bill 6, school discipline has been a focus in the state legislature this session. How do you believe Frisco ISD should respond to proposed changes? And what role do trustees play in balancing student accountability and consistency in disciplinary actions?
So as a trustee, the main job here is to be listening to our stakeholders. We need to be listening to our teachers. We need to be hearing from our administrators, listening to parents and to students. There's 4 large groups and large components there that may not see eye to eye on what the exact fix may be, or what is causing some of these situations. So it's bringing everybody together to hear their voices, hear their concerns, and find where we can meet each other. Because we're not always going to see eye to eye, but we're going to have different perspectives. The needs at the elementary school level are going to be different than the middle school level. So in terms of policies, it's listening to them and enacting them and giving direction and guidance to the administration on a campus level to make sure they're meeting the needs of those individual students, because every campus is different. That's why we have community-based schools.
Stephanie?
Can you repeat the question?
I would love to.
Thank you.
It has my favorite word in it, consistency, which I've had a hard time with tonight. I apologize. School discipline has been a focus in the 89th legislative session. How do you believe Frisco ISD should respond to proposed changes, and what role do trustees play in balancing student accountability and consistency in disciplinary actions? And this is concerning the House Bill 6.
So my understanding is House Bill 6 would allow for districts to have a little more leeway in dealing with certain disciplinary issues. What I would say to that is I don't know how I would answer, how I would respond to that, because who knows exactly what the bill's going to look like if it gets passed and gets to signed into law. So it's hard for me to kind of speculate on what that would look like. In general, though, I do think that there are some situations that we have seen in the schools where teachers and administrators were not able to address some of these issues in the way that they would like to, and that would cause disruptions in the classroom. And so I think at the point at which disciplinary issues are causing disruptions in the classroom, whether it be a one-time or on an ongoing thing, those issues need to be addressed. The board can pass policies. Obviously, we can't pass anything that conflicts with the state law, but we can pass policies to help address those things, and I've been part of the policy committee and have been part of certain policies that didn't work for the district and making sure that those got changed in this regard.
Stephanie, we'll start with you on this question. In your perspective, what lessons can be learned from the recent failed Frisco ISD bond proposals? And what do you see as the next steps forward for the district?
So I was the one trustee who voted against the bond package as presented, and I'll tell you the reason why I voted no, because it was too much for our community. It was over $1 billion. It had some things in there that were needs and not wants, or excuse me, wants and not needs in my opinion. And there was also a tax increase, and it was just too much for our community. Our community is suffering. They're having trouble paying their rent, their mortgage, their gas, all of those things, and I felt it was too much. So I voted no, and the voters then agreed with me. What has happened since in Frisco ISD is very exciting to me. I actually had a committee meeting probably about a week after the bond failed on the ballot in November, and that group had already come up with things to do to save money because they weren't going to get what had been part of the bond package. So what we need to do is go back, regroup. There may be another bond down the road someday, but I think it will be much smaller and much easier for our community to accept. But we need to figure out how to deal with the needs that we have with the money that we have.
Stuart, in your perspective, what lessons can be learned from the recent failed Frisco ISD bond proposals? And what do you see as the next steps forward for the district?
Lessons learned. It's communication, communication, communication. It's context. It's understanding the need and the why. That was greatly lacking. We can tussle over the amount and the numbers of it, but the needs still existed, and they still exist. We need safety and security updates. We need technology updates. We need new school buses. Our facilities need maintenance. Those things cannot be accomplished with the current funding formula. It is the best way to do those things. I don't think that was expressed in a way that was communicated and to a level of understanding. Even by the own survey that the FISD did, 40% of people didn't realize that it wasn't going to relate into, or wasn't going to actually increase the taxes. It was going to get rolled into the current 27-cent INS, and there was going to be no increase. This was not explained well enough, and the state language at the bottom in bold capital letters did not help that case.
Thank you. Can I add something to that? I guess it would be my challenge.
You have a challenge, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I'll take that now. So I think that communication is easy to say that that's an issue, but I don't know about everyone else. I got 4 mailers to vote yes on these bonds and tax increases to my house. There were signs at every campus, and there were multiple district communications regarding this matter. So I don't think that it was communication, because there was a ton of communication supporting this bond. And so I do think that it was too much for the community, and that is why those bonds failed.
You want to challenge the challenge? 30 seconds.
Signs are not context. Mailers are not context and details. It's an alert to, let's do the homework together. I'm on the PTA board. We had members of our board. The next day it's like, well, what do you mean we're not going to get the new buses? What do you mean we're not going to get the new staley? They'll just find a different way. They'll just use the other money that they have. Well, there's no other money. When we have PTA board members that don't understand the context and the reason and the why, we did a poor job of communication.
All right, it's now time for closing statements for 1 minute each, and we'll go in reverse ballot order. That means Stephanie, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
Did you say closing statements?
Closing statements.
That went fast. Okay. So I am very pleased to stand before you tonight with the endorsements of several leaders in our community, including Frisco ISD parents and elected leaders Jared Patterson, Daryl Hale, Brian Livingston. I've also been endorsed by Senator Angela Paxton, Pam Little of the State Board of Education, and the Dallas Morning News as of yesterday. But I want to tell you about an endorsement that I got a couple months ago that means more to me than any of those. It was from a teacher who works in Frisco ISD. She came up to me after a recent community input night, and she said to me, I did not vote for you in 2022, but I just watched you for 2.5 hours listen to community members, and I could tell that you were listening, and I could tell that you cared. And for that reason, I'm going to vote for you this time, and I'm going to tell everyone I know. That meant more to me than any of these other endorsements, although I'm very grateful. I'm here to serve our teachers. I'm focused on teacher retention. Stephanie Alon, place 3. Thank you.
Stuart, 1 minute.
Hello again, Stuart Shulman, the challenger in place 3. I'm proud to be running with no PAC money. I'm proud to be running, not trying to get endorsements from political agendas or ideologies. I'm just running as a parent. I'm running as a teacher, as an educator, and as a community member, just like all of us. I'm running because my kids are just starting, and I want to make sure that a decade from now, we have the best possible schools with the most innovative things possible here in Frisco. That's why I bet every single one of you moved here, because of the schools and because of the region. I'm here to make sure that we still have that, and that you've got a reasonable voice in the room when the hard decisions need to be made and when the great decisions need to be made. Because I'm here to listen, I'm here to learn, and I'm going to show up when it's hard, when it's easy, every time it's needed. Thank you.
We want to thank both of you for being on the ballot and stepping up to serve your community. We wish you the best of luck. Thank you.